Welcome to John Martin Talks, where we battle ignorance and apathy daily. The growing ignorance of just how special this experiment we call the United States of America is, and the apathy that we can't or won't do anything and everything to save her. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I had a little thing. I got to turn down the volume on my computer. You know, I'm technically challenged for a lot here. Sometimes this good old boy, you know, this old salty dog, old Captain Whitebread, he's got some a little bit to learn. But one thing I do know the difference is between collusion, as the sign says, and delusion and fake news versus JMT and excluded here, what we do here, because we give you real news, but in a seriously entertaining way. At least that is our mission. Well, the word of the day, ladies and gentlemen, is counsel. And I have to spell it correctly because there's two different ways of counsel. There's like the city council that I used to serve on in my little town of Hawthorne, or there is counsel like giving advice. So we're using the COUNSEL, which is a policy or plan of action or behavior. So giving you advice or coming up with a plan. Here is my counsel. So the first story we're going to look at today is coming to you from something I would suggest you take very little counsel on, which is the New York Times. And my little headline to it is Counseling Insanity. Some on Mueller's team see their findings as more damaging for Trump than Barr revealed, from the New York Times. Some of Robert S. Mueller, little Bobby Mueller's the third. I wonder if this is Robert Mueller the third. I wonder what the first and second were. Were they... Anyway, but some of Robert S. Mueller III's investigators have told associates that Attorney General William P. Barr, man, you got to know this is really serious when they start. I guess I should say my name is John William Martin. I mean, it's just amazing how it gets more serious when we put the third or William P. Barr. Failed to adequately portray the findings of their inquiry, and that they were more troubling for President Trump than Mr. William P. Barr, it just said Mr. Barr, indicated, according to the government officials and others familiar with their simmering frustrations. So in other words, they're saying the New York Times, so it's got to be true, right? Of course, it's all anonymous. I mean, basically President Trump, it's criticism of President Trump, it's anonymous. I mean, so they're essentially saying that Mueller's underlings, in other words, some of his 40 FBI agents and tens, if not dozens of lawyers and all that, are a bit unsettled with Barr's summary of Mueller's report. And they're leaking, that's not what they're saying, I guess they're expressing their concerns, is what the New York Times is talking about. It sounds to me like they're leaking. I mean, call it what it is. They're leaking, man. Hey, you know, Scoob, I'm writing the name on this thing here, man. Don't eat the yellow snow, by the way. But of course they do. Of course they do. Of course they feel like it's not right because their insurance policy is not paying off. And by that I mean, you remember, I've said this before, but I haven't talked about it in a while, but of course if I say it, it bears repeating. You remember when all these texts started coming out about stroke, and this Page gal that he was having an affair with the FBI and all that. To me, the most telling text so far that has come out is the one where he's reassuring his lover that it's all going to be all right because Trump's not going to win. But if he does, if true, we have an insurance policy. And I've suspected from the very beginning, and I don't see any reason to change my counsel right now, is that the Mueller report is indeed that insurance policy that Stroke was talking about. Now, a funny thing happened is when they actually started investigating it, there was nothing there. But their insurance policy's not paying off like they thought it would. So, of course, they're coming out and saying, this thing is really worse than it may appear. At stake, according to the New York Times, is the dispute, the first evidence of tension between Mr. Barr and the special counsel's office, Robert Mueller. Of course, Barr, during his Senate hearings, he told that he was like bosom buddies with Mueller, that they were best of friends, and I think they probably are. They served together in various capacities for years. He even went so far to say, our families are friends. So there's a rift, supposedly, between Barr and Mueller. I've seen no real evidence of it. Keep in mind, as we go, I should have mentioned this earlier. Mueller during the middle of his investigation, or towards, I guess, the last 6 months or so, you remember he was pretty quiet. He never said a word, really. But there was some reports coming out that Michael Cohen, the shyster lawyer that used to be Donald Trump's fixer, so to speak, there was reports that he had said all kind of things that were going to implicate the president in multiple crimes and collusion and everything else. And it got to the fevered pitch that Mueller actually put out a statement saying that it wasn't true. Now, that was a surprise to me, I have to admit. But don't you think if he was willing to come out and defend Cohen, that he certainly, if he had a big problem with Barr's report, would have by now come out and said, hey, it's total nonsense that, Barr's lying to you. I mean, he would have, if he came out to defend Cohen, would he not come out to say something about his own counsel? I mean, so to me, that whole thing is ridiculous. But apparently, some members of Mr. Mueller's team are concerned that, let me back up here, because there's a point I want to make. I'm sorry, I'm a little bit discombobulated. Who shapes, according to the New York Times, this rift is, who shapes the public's initial understanding of the most consequential government investigation in American history? Some members of Mr. Mueller's team are concerned that because Mr. Barr created the first narrative of the special counsel's findings, Americans' views will have hardened before the investigation's conclusions become public. Now, I've been telling you all along, these progressives, including the progressive media, if you really listen to them, take them at their word, they will tell you what their whole motivation is, what their agenda is, everything. And the New York Times, I really believe, has done this in this statement, because let's go back and look at this one part. It says, the initial understanding of the most consequential, who shapes the public's initial understanding. That is a very key phrase, because that is exactly what the New York Times is trying to do. They may have used to be, and what they're saying used to be, all the news that's fit to print. That New York Times is dead and gone. It's gone. Much like the Democratic Party of JFK, it is dead and gone. Now they are basically the #1 media arm of the progressive left. And if you look at the New York Times, if you look at all the mainstream media, what they're really trying to do, what CNN, they don't investigate, even though they say CNN investigates, they are trying to shape public opinion. That is what it's all about. They are trying to indoctrinate, educate, and motivate you to go against, in this case, everything Trump. But make no mistake, the New York Times, and you could put a whole list, and unfortunately, it seems like Fox is starting to fall into the same thing, because they're all owned by mega corporations at the end of the day trying to make money, that their main purpose is not to give you the news, but to shape public opinion. And they are really the public opinion, kind of the PR, if you will, of the Democratic Party. That is why it's more important than ever to listen to shows like JMT and other true alternative media sources out there. So I would encourage you to continue not only listening to us, but, listen to something beyond the New York Times, that is for sure. Get the message right. See, that's the whole thing. Get the message right. If you want to understand the Democratic Party, and I'll be honest with you, one of the main reasons I left the Democratic Party is because they're all about the message. It's not about policy. It's not about how it's actually affecting people. It is what is their counsel to people. What are they trying to shape? How are people thinking? That's what they're trying to do. It's all about the messaging, because you will hear all the time, it's a message, it's a message. And if you listen to them, that is all that matters, because they're so righteous. They believe, you talk about religious belief, religions around the world, every religion around the world, they could only hope to have the indoctrination, the belief, if you will, of the progressive left, because they may be the most devout religious people I've ever seen. They don't believe in God, they just believe in the religion of progressivism. The special counsel's investigators had already written multiple summaries of the report, and some team members believed that Mr. Barr should have included more of their material in the 4-page letter. 4-page letter. Maybe he should just, here's the 500 pages. He wrote on March 24th, laying out the main conclusions. I like how it says some team members. So some of Mueller's team members. What team were they on exactly? I bet you one thing. I don't know what team they own, but I know what team they're not on. I bet they're not on America First team. I bet they're not, too many of them wearing MAGA hats unless they're Nigerian princes or whatever. But to me, what team? Are they on the American team? I doubt it very so. The red, white, and blue team, not very likely. Representatives for the Justice Department and the Special Counsel declined to comment on Wednesday on views inside both Mueller's office and the Justice Department. They pointed to the departmental regulations requiring Mr. Mueller to file a confidential report to the Attorney General. So missed in all of this is the fact that what Attorney General Barr is doing is actually following the law, contrary to what Nadler is wanting him to do. And we're going to talk more about him in just a moment. But it goes on to say Mr. Barr's separate vow to send a redacted version of that report to Congress. Under the regulations, Mr. Barr can publicly release as much of the documents as he deems appropriate, but it's his job to actually look them over. And Jerry Nadler, man, have you seen this guy, Jerry Nadler? I mean, you talk about a guy, I guess politics has been very, very good to him, because we're going to play a video in a few minutes that shows Nadler back during the Starr and the Clinton administration. Not Hillary Clinton administration, because there isn't one. It ain't never going to be. But her husband's administration. And Nadler, man, he was like, he must not be eating much at the congressional cafeteria. But Jerry Nadler, who is chair of the House Judiciary Committee, is subpoenaing, or at least he's been granted by the committee, the power to subpoena the entire unredacted report. I think ultimately, if he tries to do that, it's going to go to the courts. But I would counsel against giving him the unredacted report. But we're going to play a video right now. We're going to play a couple parts of it. Let me set this up for you. This was back during the Ken Starr investigations of Bill Clinton. And Nadler, who was in Congress, I mean, these guys never go any, that's their whole lives. He was on Rose's show, the guy who's been like Me Too'd and kicked off of PBS and CBS. But he was on the show talking about whether or not the Starr report should be released unredacted. And, of course, I think you'll see the hypocrisy of what he said then versus now. Can we play the video? Here we go.
I gather a 400 or 500 page report, and the balance is appendices and supporting materials. Now, Mr. Starr, in his transmittal letter to the Speaker and the Minority Leader, made it clear that much of this material is Federal Rule 6E material, that is material that by law, unless contravened by vote of the House, must be kept secret. It's grand jury material. It represents statements which may or may not be true by various witnesses, salacious material, all kinds of material that it would be unfair to release. So I assume what's going to happen before anything else happens is that somebody, the staff of the Judiciary Committee, perhaps the chairman and ranking minority members of the Judiciary Committee, is going to have to go over this material, at least the 400 or 500 pages in the report, to determine what is fit for release and what is, as a matter of decency and protecting people's privacy rights, people who may be totally innocent, third parties, what must not be released at all. Now,
where's that dude? I mean, we need that guy. I mean, if that guy right there were head of the Judiciary Committee, we might be able to have somebody to work with. It's amazing how these guys, man, and Republicans, in fairness, Republicans do it too, but they just change. I mean, these guys have no shame up there that have been there all these years. They just put on a different shirt, it's like the bell. It's like they argue. It's like they're all lawyers and they're arguing a case, and then the bell goes off and they take the other side. Boom. Because that's what these guys do, man. They are magicians, man. It's all smoke and mirrors up there, because he's clearly saying this is the sane Jerry Nadler. He's saying that we need to follow the law. We need to make sure that the innocent are protected. Imagine that, the innocent are protected. That people who are not guilty, that we literally go by the Constitution. Imagine that, a progressive Democrat wanting to actually go by the Constitution And I wish this Nadler still exists, but apparently he's been obliterated. He's been body snatched, because the current Jerry Nadler is basically saying, you know, we don't care about any of this. It's all got to come out. He also says in an extended version of this, we'll probably post this up on John Martin Talks Facebook. And oh, by the way, I would just mention, if you haven't done so already, I would appreciate it if you go directly to my John Martin Talks Facebook page, like it, and then share it with other people, even if you're watching on other Facebook networks, which I appreciate, or our YouTube channel, which I certainly appreciate. Please do that, because we're about to cross over the 10,000 followers, and you've made it possible. I need you to just get us over the top of that, because that's a very significant thing. But we're going to probably post the whole Nadler, this video. It's about 8 minutes long. He even goes on to say that it will take, there's a 500-page report, basically the same number of pages, roughly speaking, of the Mueller report. And he's saying, it's certainly going to take weeks in order for the Department of Justice and the Attorney General at that time to go through this, to release it, what portions they can, the redacted portions, to our committee. It's going to take weeks to do that. Now, this same guy now, you know how long he gave Attorney General Barr to release the report? Basically the same length report, 10 days, which I think that was exceeded on Tuesday. So this guy's full of crap, man. There's one more part I want to play in this, if we're ready for it, in the back. And this part, you talk about hypocrisy. Now, I have to say that this Jerry Nadler, I agree with, and see if you do too.
As Douglas impeached, he said an impeachable offense is whatever the House says it is, and in effect he was implying that it doesn't have to meet high legal standards. I don't think we take that very seriously. To impeach a president is to undo an election, is to undo the sovereign will of the American people. That's a...
Oh my God, imagine that. To impeach a president, let me see if I can get this straight, Jerry. To impeach a president would be to overturn the will of the American people. What happened to you, sir? I mean, I got to tell you, I agree with that, Jerry Nadler. I mean, I would take that dude's counsel in a minute. But the current Jerry Nadler that basically says, you know, I mean, he's been calling for the president to be impeached before the Mueller report was even released. I mean, these guys, man, they just know no shame. It's unbelievable. Let me just ask you something here. And even if you hate Donald Trump, I think if you have an open mind, you would agree with what I'm about to say. If they release this report unredacted, let's just say that Barr, this Attorney General Barr, says, okay, you win. I'm just going to release the unredacted report. I'm going to trust you, Jerry, that you will, you know, do the right thing. Because Nadler's come out and said, hey, we handle intelligence issues all the time, and you do. I agree with that. But what you do with them is another story. First of all, I got two questions for you. Do you really believe that it wouldn't be leaked, especially if it was negative against Trump? That wouldn't be leaked. And here's even probably worse. Let's just say, for the sake of, let's give Nadler some credit. Let's just say he has an epiphany and goes back to being the Nadler to a certain extent that he was before. I don't think that's possible, but let's just say he can go back a little bit. And say he doesn't actually leak, or any members of that committee don't actually leak the findings. Do you not believe that people like Nadler would go before the cameras and say, well, we've looked at it, and I can't release the unredacted part, but I can just tell you, if I could, it would really be bad for President Trump. It would really be bad. I can't do it because it would violate the law, but if I did, it would really be bad for him. And if you have any doubt that he would do that, all you got to look at is his shifty shift. He's already doing that. He's the head of the Intelligence Committee, and he's already doing that. He's already come out and said, I've seen credible evidence of collusion of Trump. I got lots of evidence. I can't release any of it. I can't tell you about it. I can't be specific about it, but I got lots of evidence. So they would do, man, they are so full of crap. And both sides are, to be fair about it. That's why we need to clean. Like I said yesterday, my biggest fear is in 2020 that not only did we not re-elect President Trump, which I believe we will, but I hope we have the cojones to clean house, man. Punish those Democrats and get rid of the never-Trumpers, man. That's what we need to do. But a debate over how the special counsel's conclusion or representative has played out in the public as well as in recent weeks, with Democrats in Congress accusing Mr. Barr of intervening to color the outcome of the investigation in the president's favor. Wow. So what they're saying is our truth is different than yours. You know, it's all about there's a couple statements that have come out of the progressive left that just, you got to give them credit, man. They're amazing. Like, if true, of course, you could follow that with anything. If true, I mean, you know, and then the other one is our truth. I mean, our truth, man. If true, our truth. I mean, the truth does not abide, as John Wayne used to say in the Shootist movie. The truth does not abide in you. I love how they claim truth, man. It's unbelievable. They don't say truth, justice, and the American way, because that would go against their anti-American beliefs. Mr. Barr has come under criticism for sharing so little. But according to officials, and he's only had this thing for like 10 days, guys. But according to officials familiar with the Attorney General's thinking, he and his aides limited the details they revealed because they were worried about wading into political territory. They're in Washington. The whole thing, waiting. I mean, you need a boat. That's why I got this paddle back here to help. I mean, I'll help. I got it for the president to paddle through the swamp. But Attorney General Barr, if you need some help, man, me and old Billy Bob will paddle right through that swamp. But I don't think you can wade in it.
Alive to serve this ship.
A row, man. So
row well and live.
I'll do it. I'll do it, man, but I don't think you can wade in Washington right now because waders waders have to be up here over your head. Mr. Barr and his advisors expressed concern that they included derogatory information about Trump while clearing him. They would face a storm of criticism like Mr. Comey endured in the Clinton investigation. So my first question is, what Clinton investigation? I mean, was there really a Clinton investigation? Keep in mind, Comey, he wrote talking about exoneration. He wrote a letter exonerating Hillary Clinton before he even interviewed her. So, you know, whatever investigation they had, we're going to investigate you, but don't worry, sir, we already found you innocent. Right, man. Legal experts attacked Mr. Comey at the time for violating Justice Department practice to keep confidential any negative information about anyone covering during investigation. So Comey violated Justice Department practice. Barr is following it. But he should be condemned for that. And so, you know, why is this important? Why is it important to have redacted information, to have this idea that, you know, you need to not put people who are innocent, who haven't actually been charged, out before the public, that kind of thing? Why? Well, the New York Times, believe it or not, actually cites the reason why right here. According to the Times, the practice exists to keep from unfairly sullying people's reputations without giving them a chance to respond in court. Hey, I never thought I'd learn much from New York Times except what not to do. But I'm in total agreement. That is reason why. That is why the original Jerry Nadler, back on Rose's show, he made some sense. He basically said, you know, we got to protect the innocent. But the current Jerry Nadler, like he's gone through some kind of time warp or something. He's been literally body snatched, man. And what was the facial body? Need to go like that. I mean, he's been that dude is now doesn't give a damn about people's privacy. So innocent until proven guilty. God, that is a bunch of nonsense. And what kind of nonsense is this? That you're innocent until proven guilty. I mean, why would we even want to care about that, right? That little old Constitution, man, it just keeps getting in the way of the progressive logic, does it not? I mean, think about Kavanaugh, man. Do you remember Kavanaugh? That dude? I mean, he was like guilty until proven innocent, and they weren't even going to give him a chance to prove he was innocent. And when he tried to talk about his innocence, he was mean-spirited. You know, right? I mean, that get me. So he's in. Think about. I wasn't going to get too deep into Kavanaugh, but I got to go on a little bit of rant about this. So what the mainstream media and the progressive left are mean-spirited. So he's supposed to sit there in front of his family. Remember, in the first process, before he even got a hearing, when he was just in the initial opening statements of the hearing, it was so bad he had to take his children out. I mean, before they even gotten any details that were later to come. But he's supposed to be able to just sit there. So here's a guy who's supposed to sit there and go, you, sir, are a worthless piece of crap. And I'm going to tell you, not only are you the scum of the earth, but you should just sit there and shut up. And that little wife of yours that's over there in shock, man, she needs to get on board with the rest of us feminazis. And your little kids, well, maybe you should consider a fourth-term abortion. I mean, but he's supposed to just sit there and take all that. And then the fact that he came back and said, look, this is nonsense and all that. Then he's mean-spirited. So you can literally tell the guy that he's a serial gangbanger rapist. And he's supposed to just go, well, you found me out, man. I mean, come on. The fantasy that the leftists put out there. Thank God many of the American people are beginning to get really woke. But the fallout from Mr. Barr's letter outlining Russia investigation's main findings here, it says here. What was this investigation, the Mueller investigation, was it ever really about Russia? I don't think so. Jay said no. It's a progressive fantasy. Think about this, ladies and gentlemen. This is what really pisses me off more than anything else about the investigation. Is a lot of these people aren't stupid. They may be deranged, but they're not stupid. You don't think that people, and I could just give a litany from Bob Mueller himself right on down to, Morning Joe Schmo, media people, Zuckerberg, both Zuckerbergs at Facebook and at CNN, and the list is long. All these people, man, all the members of Congress, including Nadler, by the way, do you really believe that they think that Donald Trump waited his whole life, did everything he's done, good, bad, or ugly, for the moment that he could become Russia's pocket puppet, that he could become Putin's lapdog? Do you really and truly believe that? Because I got to tell you, if you do, man, I counsel you need some serious help. But the thing that pisses me off, if you got a real problem and you believe that, then maybe you need some help. But these people that have pushed this investigation out there, they knew it was a bunch of baloney from day one. And they still pushed it up there. It's just a progressive fantasy. And some people have believed it hook, line, and sinker, which is a crying shame. I mean, I don't have a problem with you hating Trump. Really, I don't. I might question as to why. But you can have political differences. But if you believe that nonsense that they're putting, I got a real issue with you, and you need some serious help. Overshadowed his intent to make a public, as much as the entire report, talking about Barr, as possible, a goal he stressed since his confirmation hearing in January. He reiterated to lawmakers on Friday that he wanted both Congress and the public to read the report. This is Attorney General Barr, and said that the department would, by mid-April, which, is quicker than what Nadler said, the original Nadler. I don't know about this Frankenstein Nadler, the Walking Dead Nadler. I guess he's risen from the dead or something. But anyway, he's basically gone with what the original Nadler said about the Barr report. The Starr report. Barr's report's going to be the same way, but that's not enough. But Nadler said, like I said, it would take weeks for the Starr report to come out. But, 10 days, you got to have it 10 days. And here's what, the bottom line on this story is, ladies and gentlemen, and I've got to calm down because I want to make sure you understand that. The old JMT here, Billy Bob Bass, in case you hadn't met my psychic sidekick, he kind of keeps me straight, and he's kind of psychically told me to, calm down to make sure people understand where you're coming from. He's got a Twitter account, by the way. It's at Billy Bob Bass. Mine is at John Martin Talks. But I would counsel patience. Just let the system, work itself out. Bullshit. I'm going to call bullshit on me right now. Progressives, buddy. You can't. Progressives, remember this. If you don't get anything outside the show, get this. Progressives can only only be defeated. They cannot be reasoned with. All you got to do is go back, and like I say, we'll put up the whole about 8-minute video for you to see on John Martin Talks of Jerry Nadler, and see like the before and after Jerry Nadler, and realize these people are nuts, man. They're insane. They don't want to find any middle ground. Their truth, if true, their truth, all that nonsense, they can only be defeated. You cannot reason with these sons of guns. It's just not possible. It's not possible. So I had to call BS Birdie on myself. All right, we're going to move on. Let me check my time here. We're doing pretty good. This next story comes to you from a group called Campus Reform. And if you hadn't looked at them, I really like them. They're an online publication that focuses primarily on the craziness which has been happening really for decades, but it's really come to light in the last few years since Trump, right? He's exposed even the colleges. But they got a story here, and my subtitle to it would be "Counsel, a Policy or Plan of Action Behavior," like the definition, "for you MAGA sons of guns." This is for you. If you're, well, maybe not them Nigerian MAGA hat wearing dude, but if you're a creepy old white dude or a young white guy and you're wearing a MAGA hat and you believe in America first, I mean, this is for you. Because here's the title from Campus Reform. KU, not FU, but KU, offers, and that's Kansas University, offers angry white male course. The University of Kansas is offering a course on angry white men and the role of dominant and subordinate masculinities. I don't know. It's dominant and subordinate masculinity. Is that described like Morning Joe with Mika Brzezinski? That's probably what his role is. As they connect to rights-based movements, right-based movements of women, people of color, homosexuals, and trans individuals. Well, first of all, I don't see how this helps angry white men, but maybe not. But I think we got a video. You don't have the video? Okay, we couldn't get it up in time. But look at this right here. Look at this picture right here. Now, you want to see the textbook example of an angry white male. Now, this is just a whippersnapper, as I call them. But these boys from Kavanaugh, from that Covington, was it? I got Kavanaugh on the brain. Covington School, Catholic school in Kentucky. Now, weren't they examples of white men gone wild? I mean, they're like the version of spring. They must have been on spring break or something, because, man, go back and look at that video. These young men were insane, man. They were like chastising this Indian, some poor innocent black dudes that were just basically there saying Israel is trying to screw America and all that kind of stuff. You know the opposite is true, right? Before you tune off and say, what's this guy doing? You know these Covington kids, man, they were like the opposite of what they were paying. They showed remarkable restraint, and they were happy, joyous, and free, which is, that pisses off the Democrats so much. But, I mean, come on, man. We've got to do something for you angry white men out there. Angry White Male Studies, in case you're wanting to take I don't know if they do a correspondence course or not at KU, but it's HUM 365, like humanities, which is being offered during the fall 2019 semester, will explore, this is what they're after, the deeper sources of this emotional state while elevating recent manifestations of male anger in Europe and America from 1950 to the present, according to the course description. Wow. I don't know what the hell that means, but I'm going to take a stab at it right now. So let's look at the deeper sources of an emotional state while elevating recent manifestations of male anger in Europe and America from 1950. Maybe I'm wrong. I was only born in '60, so I'm not sure that there was a history before I was born. But assuming that what I read and see on these documentaries was true, I think there were more pissed off white men in Europe back before 1950 than now. I think they were like pissed off mostly at each other, were they not? And they damn near killed the world over it, right? Europe has had angry white men angry at other white men for the most part for their entire history, right? I mean, they're trying to decide which is one is, I don't know if you saw this, I put up for your entertainment pleasure, because I'm always trying to help. I thought people might need a little laughter. If you hadn't seen this, I put up a comedian's short video on my JMT Facebook site. Go back there, like it, share it with others. But he basically says he was like traumatized, because he grew up in a mixed family. His mother was white and his father was dark white. I mean, It's pretty funny. Go back and look at it. But anyway, man, angry white men. I think there's been angry white men in this country before too. Of course, we don't know if they were black or white, right? Because they were all wearing hoods and members of the Democratic Party. That's the reason. It's hard to tell, right? But go back to this Europe deal. Angry white men. It's like, could it be? I mean, think about it. I'm sure they're going to cover this. It's going to be one of the tests they're going to give. And I don't mean to be a spoiler for those of you who want to sign up for this course, but I'm sure they're going to point out how this religion of peace has finally come to Europe. I mean, forget the fact that they took over parts of Europe, the Moors, back in Spain and everything else. And it ain't the first time they've had an Islamic invasion. These guys are coming. The religion of peace is coming to Europe. And these angry white men, they just, for no reason, I mean, forget that there are rape squads in Germany, that Sweden is like the rape capital of the world now. Forget that. Forget that there's literally no-go zones, not to mention a few bombs here and there and that kind of thing. Forget all that. They're a religion of peace. Now, going back prior to 1950, there was one angry white man that actually embraced the Muslim faith. And I don't talk about him that much. I did put a video, well, I think Excluded's got a video up of it. Check it out. There was one angry white man. I know it's before 1950, so it's hard to believe. His name was Adolf Hitler, and he embraced the religion of peace. He worked hand in hand with the Muslim world to literally eliminate the Jews and bring peace and prosperity, I guess, to the rest of the world. So maybe they're on to something. This course, getting back to, Billy Bob says I need to get back on track, so I want you on my side of the wall. We got to come up with some swag coffee cups. Stay tuned, more coming. The course is cross-listed under both the Humanities Department and the Women's Gender and Sexuality Studies Department at KU, and is an option to satisfy a humanities course requirement. So, I'm always trying to help. I mean, I want to help angry white men, even if they happen to be Nigerian princes in whiteface. I mean, so I'm willing, as Captain Whitebread, man, one of the things I'd like to do is public servant here. I mean, there's some angry white dudes right there, at least Smollett said they were. Looked pretty angry to me. It looked like if nothing else, hey, you dudes need to do a workout video, man. You need to do it. Anyway, so I'm always trying to help. So I want to calm. And here's the thing about Captain Whitebread, man. I'm not just for white folks. I'm for all people. So if I can help men in general that are angry and help them to calm down, I'm going to offer some advice to Kansas. And it's going to combine all the things, because they're talking about, for instance here, that this Humanities Department and the Women's Gender and Sexuality Studies, I can tell you, there's a way for you people studying women's studies at Kansas, you could calm a lot of angry dudes down. There ain't no doubt about it. I mean, all you got to do, well, let me just tell you this. This is a little history lesson for you, John Martin talk style. Men, and I'm not talking about white men, men will do, and spoiler alert or whatever, this is not a family show, so I want to take all small children by the hand, lead them. Men throughout history will do exactly the amount of effort into whatever it takes to get laid. They will. I hate to break that to you. But you look, and here's some examples. You look at countries where women run around naked, like in Tahiti and whatever, all they build is a grass hut. They say, that's enough, man. She's already naked. But in like England, where they were living in caves, the woman came in and said, I'm not doing this anymore on that hard floor, and they built the Industrial Revolution. I mean, so I'm just telling you, men will do whatever it takes. If a grass hut's enough, baby, that's good. If you want me to like industrialize the world, I'm with you.
Stop giving away the secret, John.
But I tell you, there's one little word of caution. You can overdo it, because if you get to the point that you're wearing so many clothes they can't see but one eye and not even your ankles, men will not build anything. They will blow shit up. So I'm just telling you. I'm trying to help. So you women of women's studies, if you want to help angry men across the world, let alone old white dudes like me, hey, think about it. Just think. I'm just putting it out there. I'm just giving counsel. You don't have to take it, but think about it. All right. All right, we'll move on here. Time to move on. This next article, man, is incredible. It's coming to you from The Atlantic, which is basically Never Trumper paper. I would counsel calm because shocking news is about to be revealed here. The Democratic Party is radicalizing. Wow, like we didn't know that already. But this is coming to you from a guy named Peter, Wehner. Is that Wehner? I don't know. Is it Wiener? I mean, there's so many ways to spell. Like the progressive left has Anthony Weiner, right? Isn't that his name? Well, this guy is, I guess he's a never Trumper, really is what he is. He's Peter Wiener. So there's Wieners, Wieners. It's just hard, man. It's really, I'm not making this stuff up, man. It writes itself. But according to this guy, extremism isn't just affecting the GOP. So it's not just Republicans that are extreme, because, of course, the definition of extremism is, we elected a criminal. We elected a criminal, a pocket puppet, a Cheeto master in Donald Trump, right? Because Donald Trump, one thing about, I told you the Russian collusion is a delusion. There is no doubt about that. But one thing that Donald Trump, and I've said this many times, but I'm going to keep repeating it, he is absolutely guilty of the worst crime in the history of presidential politics. He won. He won, and you sons of guns, you MAGA hat wearing angry ass white men out there, and you Nigerian white faced princes that are hanging people in Chicago on the coldest night in history, all of you sons of guns are responsible for electing, including me and Billy Bob and everybody behind the scenes here. We're responsible for electing Donald Trump, man, and these never Trumpers. So the GOP now is extreme because they elected Donald Trump. Well, I got news for you snowflakes out there. In case I said this a couple of days ago, but did you see that rally that Trump had in Grand Rapids, Michigan? There's been reports come out now that the crowd was surveyed, and 30% of them were Democrats. Oh, my God. Did you hear it? 30% were Democrats. Imagine that. That's going to melt the snowflakes for sure. But anyway, check out this article. So I'm not going to be able to do it justice, even though I got quite a bit of time, because it's really lengthy, and it describes the current state of the Democratic Party. Pretty profound. I agree with much of what he says here. The transformation of the GOP into the party of Patrick J. Buchanan, the Trump before Trump, the Trump without the airplane and the money, basically, and Donald J. Trump defined the cultural resentment, crude populism, and ethnic nationalism. In other words, pissed off white dude party. I mean, that's basically what he's saying. Think about this. This is how he's describing the Republican Party since Buchanan. Now, keep in mind, this was the party with Buchanan that had elected Bush Sr. The guy that everybody loves now because he's dead. I guess that's one reason why his son is keeping such a low profile, because he's afraid he might not be liked. So he's just waiting to die so they'll like him. But, it's amazing. The most popular people in the world are dead Republicans. It is incredible. They even like Ronald Reagan a little bit now. It's just amazing. But anyway, so he's basically saying that the Republican Party for the last couple of decades has just basically become the old pissed off white dudes party. And, maybe he's got a point there. I mean, I don't think I'm that pissed off. But anyway.
There are still generations of people, older people, who were born and bred and marinated in that prejudice and racism, and they just have to die.
Well, Oprah, hey, for the bucket list, before I die, I was thinking about, would you do one of them Russian PP parties for me before? I'm going to get that image out of my head. But anyway, he says, is among the most important political stories of the century, but the GOP is hardly the only party that is undergoing some alarming tectonic shifts. So the Republican Party, he's basically saying, at least I thought it's always been old white dudes now, but it's more old white angry dudes than ever. Liberals wondering why conservatives who worry about Trump don't join the Democrats should consider what's happening on the other side of the aisle. So he's basically saying that never Trumpers like him, if the Democrats are wondering, well, why don't you come join up with us? I mean, Donald Trump, how can you be with, I know you're a never Trumper, but why don't you take the next logical step and just join with us? Just join with us. Well, you know why? Because it's insane. They realize that even swamp rats like Mitt Romney and John McCain, God rest his soul. Even those guys knew that the left was totally insane. So yeah, Trump might be the greatest criminal because he won. He might be everything that they want to say he is, but they're not quite ready to join Nancy Pelosi and the AOC, because even though they're never Trumpers, they got one or two brain cells still firing. If you want to understand just how radicalized the Democratic Party has become in recent years, look at the ascent of Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont, a self-proclaimed socialist. He is a socialist. Sanders served as mayor of Burlington, Vermont, and was elected to the House in 1990 and Senate in 2000. In other words, this dude, Bernie, ain't ever had a job and was basically a couch surfer until he got one with the government. But he goes on, he says, left-wing Sanders' views have been, and at least by the standards of American politics. So he's bemoaning that the Democrats have moved so far left that Bernie is their standard bearer. So I'm like, who is this guy, man? Because, you know, if you really keep writing this stuff, I know who he is. He's a never Trumper, take my word for it. But Peter Weiner, he said, it's Peter Weiner, the Weiner. I mean, you know, him and Anthony, maybe they could form, maybe those two guys could come together. Anthony Weiner and Peter Weiner, and two Wieners come together, maybe in one of them snuggle buddy groups like we saw. I don't know.
If I had a name like that, I'd probably be deranged too.
I would just name myself Peter Gerbil, but that's just something. I mean, it kind of says it all. But I would counsel you, Mr. Gerbil, Mr. Weiner, to watch your back, sir, because you are revealing party secrets here, and you're talking about the burn, man, and the burn has an army. Not only feeling the burn, but willing to burn. And it's called Antifa. And they may be coming to your house, brother. Sanders has been a consistent defender of regimes like the anti-American dictators like Daniel Ortega and Fidel Castro. He took pains to separate his brand of socialism from the totalitarianism of the Soviet Union. Oh, yeah? Really? He went there and got naked and danced in the streets of Moscow. I guess that's separating them. He goes on here. He says the 77-year-old Sanders is now a front runner for the 2020 Democratic nomination, with the New York Times declaring, of course it has to be true, that his leftist ideas on health care, taxes, the environment, and other matters are defining the race. But I get really confused about this stuff. Because Bernie is now leading the race, which polls show he's leading the money, he's leading the polls, he's leading the race in money and everything else, which is all important. He is defining a lot of the issues, so I'm not declaring, but he's an old white dude, man. I don't know how angry he seems. Pretty angry. I mean, you can see. Can't you see Bernie? If he doesn't make president this time, he could always do one of the commercials. Get off my lawn, you know, and that kind of stuff. I mean, he is an angry old white dude. He really is. Have you ever seen Bernie really happy? Maybe in that video in Moscow when he really felt at home, naked, and you know, Bernie gone wild. That video will sell big, right? The ideas that we take back to the article. He says the ideas. Can you imagine Bernie? Once you feel the burn. He said, once you feel the burn. Because I always told if you feel the burn, get some medicine, go to the clinic. But when you feel the burn, how many out there are feeling the burn, man? I mean, with the Gerbil Nation, it's hard to say. Did you see, a side note, I saw this, I started to do a story on it. They're actually, I think it's in Europe, but it's coming to America, no doubt about it. They actually have developed a condom, or a package for a condom. They call it the consent condom. Jay, I swear to God this is true. It's the consent condom. The package is designed that it takes 4 hands to open. Right? So you have to have 4 hands. Now, some people, like that Snuggle Buddy group, they may take that as a challenge. Can you have 4 different hands? But they have developed a condom. They call it the consent condom, where it takes 2 people.
I would take that as a challenge.
Yeah, it gives a whole new meaning to like Twister or whatever. But the ideas that we talked about here in Iowa, this is what Bernie said 4 years ago that seemed so radical at the time. He's saying they were radical. Sanders said during a trip, he says, shock of all shocks, those very same ideas, this is Bernie's words, are now supported not only by the Democratic candidates for president, by the Democratic candidates all across the board, from school board and up. And he's right. Bernie is absolutely right. His ideas have taken over the Democratic Party. They have totally obliterated. If there was ever a doubt that the party of JFK is over, the party of feeling the burn has wiped it out 100%. But the most important thing I want to bring to you on it, because people are always asking me, how can I get involved? And every young person out there, you know, and old people too, but I deal with a lot of young, idealistic people. Thank God. There are more of them out there than you think, and we live in a university community. But first thing they want to do is run like for state house. They want to, you know, they not all want to run for Congress. They want to run for state house of the legislature. You see this all over. Some of them have been very successful. I'm not poo-pooing that. I applaud that. But I wish some more young people that are conservative would actually consider running for school board. Because I'm telling you, that is the area where people like Bernie have been focusing. You wonder what he's been doing for the last couple of years? He and Ocasio-Cortez and the people behind them, they've been trying to get people elected to local city commissions and school boards. I mean, they didn't have to do that here because we already got it. But all you got to know about my area, and this is a separate story, but you remember Andrew Gillum? Thank God he's not governor here of Florida. Thank God that DeSantis won. But Andrew Gillum is going to be paid. Now you think you got it bad. This is where we got. He is getting ready to be paid by the ratepayers, the taxpayers. When I say ratepayers, it's because the utility is owned by the city of Gainesville, GRU. He's getting ready to get paid by the ratepayers of this community I live in here, $10,000 to give a speech to them. $10,000. I mean, good Lord, who the heck wants to hear from that dude? But apparently, the progressive left here is all about it. But back to this school.
Hell, I'll put on some blackface if you pay me $10,000 and go speak.
Go, man. Maybe you go see if there's any. We could have the old angry white dude club there, man. But school board, run for school board, because the schools, man, have literally become the centers of indoctrination. They don't know. I give you a quick example. I've been saying this I don't think I've said this on the show in a good while, or maybe on this version of it, not ever. But take our money, which they're trying to change, by the way. Take our money and put it out in front of a kid that's in, close to graduating high school, probably in freshman in college, and ask them to write a short paragraph about the significance of every one of the people on our currency. I'd be willing to bet you they could not do it. And if they could do it, they'd say slave owner, something like that, hate monger or whatever. I mean, it's the schools, man, they're not doing the job that I think they should do. They're doing the job that Bernie wants them to do really well. In 2016, Iowa helped begin the political revolution. This is what Bernie said. Now, as we move to 2020, our job is to complete that revolution. So in other words, what he's telling you is, we lit the match in 2016, and now it's time to feel the burn, and burn, baby, burn Constitution. Because that's what's in their way. That's what's in their way, that old Constitution. That's why they want to change every aspect of it. They want to do away with Electoral College. The list goes on. They want to pack the Supreme Court. All this kind of stuff. They want to feel the burn of the Constitution. That's what they want to feel. Make no mistake. That is literally what is at stake here. He's not kidding, according to this article. Let me check my time. I got a few more minutes. He's not kidding, and he's not alone. No joke. I wish he was. Among the freshman class of House Democrats, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. I hadn't said it that way in a while. Now the second most famous Democratic socialist in America, she may be more famous than Bernie, is the unquestioned star among the base. According to Dan Balaz, the Washington Post, another great source for illogical material, Ocasio-Cortez is the titular, I hope I say that right, I don't want to be sexual, the titular leader of the progressive grassroots movement pushing the party to the left. Says the mere mention of her name elicits spontaneous applause on programs like The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. Well, and I'm sure all of that's true when I talk about the school board and everything. It reminds me about the KU story we were talking about earlier about the, the old white man studies. Man, you know what they really need? They need a study of idiocy. We need to study the impact of idiocy, because I'm telling you, man, our universities, we used to have the greatest educational system in the world. I mean, think about California really as an example. California, I hate to tell you, but California used to be the envy not only of the country, but of the world in their educational system. And I can tell you the last place on earth I'd send one of my kids is to California for education.
Well, John, remember, they don't get angry about one white man thing.
Oh, yeah?
When it's green.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny how they collect them dead presidents and inventors, especially old white dudes, man. But the writer, Mr. Weiner, goes on to say, Ilhan Omar recently, I love this part right here, man. You really got to listen to this right here. This is something else, man. Ilhan Omar recently dismissed former president, now it must have been Ronald Reagan, right? Nah. Former President Barack Obama, who not that long ago defined the progressive wing of the Democratic Party as, guess what, too right-wing. So according to Ilhan Omar, President Obama was too right-wing. She said, we don't want anybody to get away with murder. Murder most foul because they are polished. Polished. That goes back to like Joe Biden talking about Obama being, man, this guy basically said I'm putting words in his mouth to a point, but go back and listen to Biden. You talk about something kind of weird. He goes, Obama, man, he's like clean and articulate. Like what? Every black dude looks like alfalfa? You talk about something racist to literally say, can you imagine if a Republican said, what I like about Obama is he's clean and articulate. I mean, good Lord, man. But Biden can say that stuff and poof, it just goes away. But anyway, says we don't want anybody to get away with murder because they are polished. She's basically saying the same thing about Obama, that, he's polished just because he speaks so well. I like that black dude. He speaks so well. I mean, give me a break, man. It's just crazy. But she said we want to recognize the actual policies that are behind their pretty face and smile. So Obama's got a pretty face. He smiles.
He talks in Arabic.
Yeah, he don't stink, and he speaks so well. He's polished, But basically, Obama, he took and dropped drones on Arabs and his members of the Islamic faith. Yeah, he did. He did do that. And he got bin Laden. So basically, she's saying, we ain't about all that. He's way too far to right. Obama's so far right. So it goes on the list. I only got a few minutes here, but it goes through a laundry list. Mr. Weiner writes here, Weiner, I hope I get his name right, that about some things that show how crazy the Democratic Party and how radicalized they are. I'm just going to go through a few of them. One of them is the Green New Deal. Now, he's basically wrote a paragraph about everyone. The Green New Deal. I mean, basically, it's the anti-cow deal. That's what it's saying. This is Ocasio-Cortez, the leader of the Democratic Party. I mean, anybody. And this is what gets me. This goes back to the idiocy and the our truth thing of like the Mueller report. When I told you the ones at the top, they knew it was a lie to begin with. This is what pisses me off about the progressive, these Democrats. Beyond just their policies, every one of the people that is currently running for president, let me let you on a little secret. There's two things you need to know about these. Every one of them now has signed off on the Green New Deal. No big shock there, but here's what might shock you. I tell you, I know pretty much it's an opinionated fact, but it's a fact nonetheless. Every one of the people running for president right now knows that the Green New Deal is bullshit. They know it is. But that don't stop them from signing off on it because they don't have any principles. They only, they have if true, and you really think they're going to write a jackass to visit all 57 states? Ain't no way. And next thing is Medicare for all. Now, they probably all for that. Medicare for all basically means it's free, that everything is free. Well, let me tell you, those of you who are on Medicare now, older people better wake up, because once Medicare becomes for all, it'll be for none, because it will be destroyed. Make college tuition free and debt-free with no debt promise, including both tuition and living expenses. So college is supposed to be free. You don't have that debt. Think about this, ladies and gentlemen. I haven't talked about this too much, but the message of college loans and what we're trying to do with them, what we're doing with it. You talk about a terrible, if they don't get any other message out of college than this, you got to, if you borrow money, you got to pay it back. I mean, think about that. We're literally telling our kids that you can have something for nothing. And we're starting it from T-ball all the way up to college now. What chance, and I don't blame our children really, but what chance do they have of knowing that you got to work for something? You don't get something for nothing. You know, I mean, allowances, if you take, you know, I had to do some chores. Imagine that. It's just crazy, man. Check my time. Well, we ain't got much time left. But let me, they want to abolish ICE, he goes on, eliminate, pack the courts, reparations, Jim Crow laws. They basically want to undo all the things that, this is the most ironic part. They want to undo all the things that the Democratic Party brought to you, like slavery. You know, the Jim Crow laws, all that kind of, they brought all that to you, and now they're saying they need to apologize for it. Anyway, I would encourage you to read this article. It's in the Atlantic. It's much longer than I can possibly go through in probably 2 shows, but it does show, he does a great job of pointing out the craziness of it. But so I would just counsel this, ladies and gentlemen. I would say is, again, you know, patience. Let me counsel you something. I'll leave you with this. I counsel you to beat these progressives at every level, from school board to presidency and everything in between. They cannot be reasoned with. They are totally insane. So my counsel to you, if you are a MAGA hat wearing, America first, or you just care about the Constitution and the rule of law in this great country, my counsel to you is beat them at every level, because nothing less will work. I hope you've enjoyed the show as much as I've enjoyed bringing it to you. Please like and share it as far and wide as you can. There's a lot of things in the works that we're going to get even bigger and better with your help. But above all else, have a blessed day.